What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Salty Runback, here to be your weekly intake of North American Developmental League of Legends. Just one day more. Tomorrow is the start of Tier 3 and Tier 2 with our NACL Open Qualifier tournament, and we are super excited for it. 64 teams in a massive, never-before-seen double elimination bracket that is going to take place over 6 days, 3 weekends, and we will be here for all of it. And we're going to try to cover every single team here on this episode in what better way but a tier list. My name is Grapes, joined alongside Hawk. Hawk, we're very excited for these OQs to begin.
I was about to say, you don't have to ask how my day is because, Grapes, we've arrived. It is OQ time here. 64 teams. It's been a long time coming. We've heard the hype around it, and sorry for the delay on the episode, by the way. We need to get all the logos in order, all the rosters in order, but this is going to be the tournament to end all tournaments. I mean, like this puts all of their brackets to shame.
Absolutely. Hey, it's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be so many co-streams going on. Literally 32 best of threes happening consecutively tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Going to be wild, and we are super excited to get things started here. Before we get into the tier list, make sure to subscribe, make sure to like, do all that good stuff. We really appreciate all the support you've had on the videos so far this season. If you like tier lists, check out our Patreon as well, patreon.com/saltyrunbackna. We have a little fun tier list video for our Overdose subscribers that'll be coming out over on Monday. But without further ado, Hawk, let's get into things. We got all 64 or most of the 64 teams here on this tier list. We're going to break them all down and talk about how far we think they are going to get in this brutal, grueling format where 64 teams come in and only 3 come out.
Yeah, which is insane, by the way, that only 3 teams come out. 32 of these teams going to be eliminated just in the first weekend of games. So you have to be in the top half just to make it. But y'all also check out the link in the description if you want to make a tier list of your own. We'll have one up. Unfortunately, 5 teams missing logos. We have a couple of L's down here. We'll kind of have to figure out who that is as we go.
Yeah,
but
we'll figure it out as we go.
64 teams. Right now, Grapes, we have 6 tiers. I think the first thing we should do is figure out what our tiers are going to be. So this top one should be qualify for NACL. We probably should have done this off air, but it's fine.
That's okay. It's good to see the process here for the fans as well.
Then this is the actually I got a better name for it. This is the IDGAF about lows tier.
I think we should try to have. I think this could be like. Well, we'll see how it pairs out. But I think it'd be fun to have the bottom 16 teams down there to show like the 16 teams we think are going to get eliminated on day one. And so maybe
no one gets eliminated on day one. Only upper bracket on day one.
Oh right, day 2 then, or like
32 teams get eliminated on day 2. Nobody's eliminated on day 1. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The first round of day 2, and then maybe the next one would be like first weekend. Maybe D tier is like first weekend. C tier is, I don't know. Do we want to try to tier it off by like how?
Yeah, let's do like, okay, so they win a match. Let me pull up my giant. Oh, of course I didn't put my bracket on the right monitor, dude. Hang on. I have so many things open right now.
Yeah. So day 3. So the interesting thing about the format is that I think day 3 is going to actually include like a lot of the upper bracket matchups, and then
day
as
3
well
is
as
just
the lower
upper
bracket
bracket
matchups.
again.
And then day 4 is going to be the best of 5s on day 4, as well as some other games that are going to be happening as well.
Also, I lied. Day 3 is upper and lower. Wow, there's a lot of games happening on day 3 at once. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's another 16, and then 16 more, 32 more games on day 3. Then there's going to be the 2 best of 5s, as well as some of the other best of 3s, or in the lower bracket. So let's just say we could say like day 3, because day 4 technically could mean you qualify in. Is the only reason I'm like maybe hesitant to say it back then.
Well, I feel like we're projecting it by lower bracket, right? Like.
Yeah, like when you're eliminated.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. It's not. Then let me add one above, and we could do we
could say like
final
just
weekend, and then contenders.
Yeah, that's good.
And then let me do some making everything look nice here.
Yeah, and
Let
we
me
have
see
the
what this
logos
one
all
would be.
here. They're not fully in really any order, so we're just gonna kind of go in order of where we see them. It's like vaguely alphabetical, but some of them aren't, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And we're probably also going to have to move some stuff around too. Like once we kind of figure out what all the teams are, you know what I mean? Like I think there will be a lot of moving stuff around after the fact, but Grapes, why don't we just dive in? 64 teams a tier list, man. This is going to be fucking nuts.
Well, let's start things off here with our first team. It looks like it's going to be third party. Now, this is, of course, a roster of players that we are very excited to see return, fully consisting of Koic, Limo, Messages, Lunar, and Just. This is like a great team if you're in 2022 or 2023, but we have not seen these guys play too much League of Legends in recent times. Most notably, Messages like retired after last spring. Most notably, he's the only one of these players who has been in the NACL, and it seems like their solo queue ranks reflect that because they're going to be starting this tournament off as the 53 seed out of 64 teams. And that makes me worry just a little bit, but I still am overall excited to see this team. I just don't necessarily see them as contenders.
Yeah, also worth noting too, maybe we can say their first round matchup going to be against Flippers. So keep your eyes out for that one. Bracket is tentative right now. But yeah, third party Grapes, this team I actually think out the gate is one of the hardest to rate because we have seen the ceilings of specifically Limo, Messages, Lunar, and Just to be very high level and very competitive in tier 3. I think somewhere in this like final weekend to day 4 type of range, right? But the problem is some of these guys have just like not been playing the game. So we actually don't really know if they're going to be good even at all. And I actually am a little bit worried for them. So yeah, I think this is actually one of the hardest teams to rate, just like immediately.
To me, this is screaming like second weekend for sure, and it's just a question of if it's day 3 or day 4. Because I'm going
Yeah.
to double check and confirm how many teams actually are going to be in that final weekend, but it's not going to be a ton. Like the amount of matchups is going to very quickly shrink down as we enter the third week of OQs. So let's say for right now, let's stick third party in day 3, and then we could potentially move them up
Yeah.
if we think that they're going to be stronger than some of the other teams towards in this kind of similar range.
Yeah, let me actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's 8 teams eliminated on day 4, which means I think it's 8 teams make it to the final weekend. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
It looks like there's 8 teams that are remaining for.
Also, I lied. Only 4 teams are eliminated on day 4, and then 8 teams are alive for final weekend. Yeah, so our tier list is gonna be a little bottom heavy here. I'm realizing.
So
which
it's
is,
gonna be it's gonna be 10. So it's 10 total teams because the losers of the best of 5s also fall down to the lower bracket and will play on day 6. So those will be, it'll be 10 total teams including the 3. So we're in that final weekend. There's gonna be about 13 to 6. We should put about 13 teams.
okay. I will believe
Or
you.
12.
So,
12 teams.
12 teams.
Let's shoot for
12
12
teams
teams
final
in the
weekend.
top 3 tiers. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. That which is fine. Okay, so yeah, our tier list is going to be a little bit bottom heavy. Knowing that, I think putting third party as a day 3er is completely reasonable. Wow, dude, this is crazy. So we eliminated 32 teams in the first weekend. That's half of the field, and then another 16 teams on day 3. That's insane. Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be a
Wow.
wild tournament, and which is very exciting. Absolutely, as we can continue on to our
Yeah,
next
let's
team,
keep
which
going.
is Akuma. Is their name. I'm going to double check to see what seed they are. They're down at 37, which is a bit surprising when you look at the names on this roster. It has TC Porsche, Will, and Sudsy, and you see those names immediately, and you're like, wow, this team should be way higher than that. But they're followed up with the bot lane of Draxer and Jito, two guys that have been coaches at this tier 3 level for a while, but we have not really seen play at the competitive level. We saw Jito on Team Fish Taco for about half of spring split last year, and that didn't end up working too well for them. So Akuma Esports, a very interesting team, another one of these potentially more volatile ones.
Yeah, I mean, the main question for me is going to be what does the bottom lane look like, right? Draxer and Jito are players that we have seen play, but not really at a high level. We've seen Draxer's teams like boom over the years, but this is a really good top side. Porsche, Will, Sudsy is like a top end of tier 3 top side. Graves, I feel like this is a very solid final weekend team, if not top of day 4.
I think it's in that range as well. I would agree with you there.
I think their final weekend, looking at some of the other teams, like because I feel like this team, if I were to like power rank, is maybe like 10th ish, like maybe a little bit higher, a little bit lower.
Okay, that's fair enough. I haven't. Okay, we'll stick them there for now. That's very
I
fair.
think that's
I
good
love
for
the
now.
top side, and we'll see what the bot lane ends up looking like, if anything. Our next team, we are kind of going in alphabetical here, as the next team is actually Apex Mission Impossible, who've changed their logo a little bit. It's now a dog or a wolf or something like that. We've talked about this roster already a decent amount. It's Decoy, Low Jazz, 5 Mini Baz, and Pocus. And this is a team that has been perennially like top 8 in the OQs. However, they have changed their mid laner out for somebody who finished top 2 in the ACL this offseason, Hawk, and somebody who is a bit of a very promising prospect in 5 Mini.
Yeah, 5 Mini getting a lot of the same hype that guys like Samikin and Toasty got about a year ago, which is really exciting to see. I'm hoping he can live up to that expectation. I will say, despite that, I think this Apex Mission Impossible team could just be described as solid across the board. I don't think they have the guns to punch up high enough to really be a true contender for the NACL, but I do rate this team above Akuma in the same tier in final weekend. Like, I think they're top of final weekend, honestly.
I was going to say definitely final weekend just because of the pedigree that we've seen these guys play with.
Yeah,
and
like this
I
will
feel
be
like
a good team.
We always talk about like, like Decoy, Low Jazz, and they're not like the top of tier 3, right? But every single time they make it into the quarterfinals, they prove that they are a solid roster here, and especially the fact that there's going to be a lot of teams that are playing together for the first time versus Apex, who played all of ACL, or not all of ACL, but like have been scrimming for a couple months. They just scrimmed the Double Lift team, so I think that putting them in this is very, very respectable. They definitely are deserving of that final weekend.
Yeah, 100% agree.
We got Bikini Bottom Warriors next up. Now this is a very interesting team here, consisting of a lot of old collegiate folk. We've got ShamWow, who's currently at Grandview University, and has previously been at the University of Michigan. And then we also have Omli in the mid lane, who is a part of a couple of different OQ teams a couple of years ago. The rest of the roster are not as familiar with here, Hawk, unless you have anything else to say about them. But I think this is a team, our first like probably weekend 1 teams, unless you
I was about to say
feel strongly.
I'm not sure how many like random teams they're going to be, but I'm guessing they're not in the top 6 or in the top 32. I don't know. I guess it depends on like how many kind of random teams there
they're
are.
They're the 41st seed, but again, it's all by solo queue.
I'm good to put them
here.
here.
They're right around teams like Oklahoma Christian and Akuma, actually, in terms of just solo queue seeding. So
yeah, seeding does not matter that much for how much we're power ranking these teams. Like, yeah, and also I know people are like talking about seeding already. It's like, oh, so and so has an easy bracket, but guys, you have to beat a contender if you're going to qualify. Only 3 fucking teams are making it, right? Like, it doesn't really matter. I don't think seeding actually matters that much in this tournament, which is a good thing. And most of the round 1 matchups are actually very balanced. So the seeding kind of did its job in that sense. Only thing is some teams maybe will go to the lower bracket sooner than others, but like,
yeah,
again, you got to beat a contender to qualify, so I don't really care. I think Bikini Bottom Warriors are probably in the win a match tier.
I think so. I think having like competitive experience in CLOL compared to just like playing it in this OQ for the first time with like just out of solo queue gives these guys a little bit of an edge over the teams that might be in a similar tier of them. Like I know Oasis has also played, I think with the University of Michigan as well, so a lot of Michigan representation here. I think overall, yeah, this is a very fine spot for them.
Yeah, I think I agree.
Our next one, Brewton Parker College, BPC. This is like the first team I know absolutely nothing about. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, and I do think, unfortunately, for that reason, they're probably going to the IDGAF about lows tier. They're what seed are they, Grapes?
They are seed number 42. However, it's like a weird situation because right now on the sheet that we have, they have the same roster listed out as Zurika, which also has a logo.
We're actually just
going
to put them here too because we don't really know what's going on with that.
Once we figure out like, oh, is this a different team? We'll let you know. But right now, not too sure.
Yeah. So although, by the way, I was forgetting to say round 1 matchups. But Brewton Parker College opening their tournament against Grandview. And then we have Zurika, because we don't know what banner they're playing under, opening their tournament against Apex. Yeah, I Grapes, I unfortunately just think this is probably a first round exit team. As far as seeding, they are high enough elo to like where they theoretically could just be in the win a match tier because they're higher elo. They're seed like 42 and 43, I think.
I say we
which
stick
is
him in here for now, though.
yeah. So I think we stick him here, but maybe their elo alone and the fact that they are a collegiate team seemingly does, maybe that just carries them like to a best of 5 win or best of 3 win. Is it best
It's
of
all
3?
best
Sorry,
of threes until
you're
you
right.
get
It's
to the
carries them
qualification
to a
matches.
best of 3 win. Which is possible. So yeah.
All right, fair enough. I think we'll leave him here for now, and then we'll see how we feel about some of the other teams. We got Chaotic Esports next, full of a bunch of players I don't know too well, and then J-Bear, who is a player who was on like Pookie Bears, I think, or
Yes.
some of those teams back in 2024. Another team I don't know too much about. I'm not gonna lie, but they are seeded,
Yeah.
decently-ish. They're 24th seed, so a lot of decently high elo players here.
I'm thinking this team is a very solid win a match. Like, they're high enough elo. We know who one of the players is. Like, guys, there's a lot of teams in this tournament where we just don't know any of the players. I know that seems like a low bar, but and also Chaotic like usually actually puts together teams of like talented individuals, even though they're not usually like super competitive in the 32 team OQs. So I have a reason to believe that they're like top 48 at least.
Their mid laner Jados and their support Yukseki are both challenger right now, and the other 3 players are master tier. So, yeah, this is a solid team. This is not like a random low elo team. They're a high elo team that will potentially be able to do some damage here.
Opening their tournament against. Sorry, I've got. They're opening against Bikini Bottom Warriors. So immediately we might have one of these teams in win a match.
So whoever wins this game gets into the win a match tier.
Yeah. And then they actually have a pretty. They got Wang in their potential next round, which would be a little challenging. But yeah.
Okay. Well, let's see. Let's continue to move on. This is Calamity Esports next. I'm gonna do a quick OPGG search on all of these guys, just to make sure.
Calamity Esports using the same logo that the Nameless would use, except with a different color palette.
Yeah, it looks pretty similar. I'm not gonna lie. Trey Dog, then Halls, Kali, Loney, and Pentius as their support. 1 challenger player, that's their mid laner Loney. 2 GM players, a master player, and a D1 who was master last season. They are seeded 29th.
Yeah. We don't know anything about this team. They're opening their tournament against Weber State University. Grapes, I don't know if by seeding we give them a win a match or if they're in IDGAF, because I just don't know anything about this team.
I have a feeling we're going to get more IDGAF later on.
I'm down to put them here for now.
Maybe we put them in win a match so far, just early on. Our next team, Contingent Esports. Now, this is an organization that has played in different OQs in the past. They made top 16 a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of splits ago, and they're actually very high up in the seeding. It looks like they're seeded number 6th in the entire tournament, and their roster consists of Ember, Reborn, Mountain, Dank, Rewinds, and Lionize, who are all players I'm not super familiar with, but are all high elo enough that I think we have to give them a little bit of respect.
Yeah, opening their tournament against Jungle Difference, which... Who is on that team? Another team that I don't know anything about. So, yeah, I mean, I think they're high elo. I'm down to put them and win a match for that reason. Contingent, known for putting together pretty good teams. They had a run from, like, 29th seed to GSL, I want to say, or 30th seed to GSL in one of the qualifiers in 2023, I believe. Yeah, again, like, we're kind of going through some of the teams that we just don't happen to know much about, but again, there's going to be 16 teams in this win a match tier. I'm happy to put them here just for respect on their elo alone.
Yeah. They have a lot of GM. It looks like a very similarly eloed roster to Chaotic, so it makes sense to kind of stick them in a similar place. We got Citadel is our next team, and I think like Hawk, we talked about this team at length on Salty Runback on our last episode, so if you want to hear a little bit more discussion about them, Philip, Armeo, Bradley, Instinct, and Trevor, I think this is far and away the biggest favorite. This is basically Nightmare Part 2, although with 4 different players, but just like giving off the same vibe as Nightmare of a lot of NACL veterans that are going to come in and probably have a very easy go of things.
Yeah, Grapes, funnily, I feel like one of the teams we also don't need to talk much about because of exactly what you just said. Like, this team is the obvious favorite to qualify through the upper bracket, I think. NACL experience out the wazoo. We said that unlike Nightmare, like maybe this team's not contending for an NACL trophy, but they're absolutely in the NACL pack. I think they're much closer to a tier 2 team than a tier 3 team.
Yep.
Rumor on the street is that them and Tempest are the big favorites right now, with Contingent being number 1. So yeah, I've absolutely got Citadel and qualify for NACL tier.
This is the favorite. We can move on
Yeah.
to our next team, which is a team that I think we're going to take a little bit of extra time to talk about here, and that is Red Note, currently sitting at seed number 11, and this is the Faded Yusin team. We Are Yushin is back here in Tier 3 with alongside a roster of Baco, Calmier, who I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, AH, his fellow Morningstar brother, and then Minsu or Kwaka, who is the support for Ball State University.
Yeah, I know.
A lot of really fun things to talk about with this team.
I know I asked Leanne how to pronounce it. Was like Chaumier or God, I just definitely butchered it again. She told me how, and I didn't really, it was hard to say. But yeah, and then sorry, you said Minsu was the support. I kind of interrupted you for a university. I'm blanking on who it was.
Ball State, who is
Ball
currently
State.
in the top 25.
Yes, currently in the top 25. Also, I've been just hearing some like hype for Minsu. Like apparently some people think this player is pretty good.
It seemed like he was scrimming with a bunch of different teams looking for an OQ org, and
yeah,
was
I
performing well.
don't know what to expect from them. Alongside AH, I will say AH, I hate to say it, was one of the less impressive players on the Morningstar White team, but still like definitively a tier 3 caliber player, Grapes. And then we have Baco, who's also sort of been in that category for me, has looked really good with some of the Misfit teams, but hasn't been at the top echelon of competitive really for a long time. And then Yusin, which is maybe going to be the best top laner in this entire tournament if he's able to live up to the expectations that were set in 2024 spring. It's been a long time since we've seen that player. Scrimbucks are saying that this team is very good. But it's really hard to rate them. Like,
Yeah.
Grapes, I think they're either contenders or they're like a day 3 team. Like, I literally think there's no in between.
You don't think there's no in between? I think there's a way they can make it to the final weekend and lose to like, I don't know, another team like that. But I think you're right. After we watch this team play its first round of games, we will know a lot better if they're closer to the contender tier or closer to like day 3 tier.
Because my biggest thing with this team is like, they can't only win off of Yusin. They can't be a contender alone off of their cracked top laner. And I don't mean disrespect towards the other players, but like that's just the truth, right? And so they can get to the second weekend off of that, but they can't beat teams like Apex if they're just relying on Yusin. And the reason I say that too is not only is Apex already on our tier list at the top of final weekend, but Grapes, Red Note opens their tournament against Indigo, but then their second match is against a probable Apex Mission Impossible in the second game of the tournament, which, looking at the bracket, is the number 1 most hyped game.
Yeah,
in
so
that
make
second round.
sure to tune in
Yeah.
to that one in the second round. It'll be
I'm going to push really hard to get that on the main broadcast, actually, because I think that is an incredible match of, you know, this team of Chinese and Korean players. Like, dude, there's so many narratives, like amazing talent from abroad with Yusin and some of these other guys. And then you have Apex, which is like the grassroots Canadian organization. Yusin, Phi Mini, like, oh, dude, it's going to be amazing. So anyway.
Well, let's put Red Note then in the same tier as Apex, because we are expecting it to be a very close game, and you know, eventually as the tournament goes on, obviously we're going to move up and down, but because we don't know just yet, let's stick them kind of in that tier, and then whoever wins that series probably moves up, and whoever loses that series will probably move down.
I'm fine with this. I would argue maybe Red Note should be in the contenders tier if they live up to the hype, but I'm fine to put them top of final weekend for now.
Let's see what other
I will say
both
both Apex and Red Note in that potential matchup, which should happen, they should win their first games. They both have the opportunity, I think, with the 2-0 to put the tournament on notice. Like if Red Note 2-0s Apex in that game, like that's a statement for the entire rest of the bracket.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be very interesting to see, because we've been hyping up Yusin for like literally over a year at this point.
Yeah.
But it's been a year since we've seen him play. So if he just comes out and looks like a totally different player, either for better or for worse, that is going to change a lot of narratives about this team.
Yes.
And my final takeaway here is that they just need one other guy to be a like A to S tier player on this team, and then they
Right.
can be a contender.
Because they
Whether
had
it's
Soul
Baco,
on that Morningstar White
yeah,
team.
exactly. Like they don't like Soul is not on this team. I think Baco's a very different play style overall than somebody like Soul. But whether it's AH or their mid jungle, if one of those players steps up, they
Grapes,
will
you need
be
Minsu to
a
hit the
contender.
Dalbule Rel engage.
That's no. I mean, if that happens, I'm all for it. Yeah, if we just bring back it's the Misfits and the Morningstars like coming together a little bit. It's great.
Dude, it's amazing. Yep.
Let's move on to our next team as we spend a lot of time talking about them. We got Drop Dead Gaming. This is their logo here. This I think we can put in towards the bottom tier. I'm gonna check their seeding right now. They're 60th seed, so I don't think that they're gonna be too much of a threat.
Yeah, and they're starting the tournament against Citadel. I don't think there's really much to say. We don't know anything about these players. They are unfortunately lower elo.
And I think the same can be said about Desperado as well, which is the next team up, because they're the 58th
Yes.
seed. They're going to be opening up their tournament against Gravity, which is a team we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yep.
Next up is the Poro team, which is Jungle Difference, and I think we can also put them relatively low because they're seeded 59th, right ahead of Drop Dead Gaming. So we're going to breeze through some of these.
And it's
as we
worth
said.
noting, like, the bottom 10 or so seeds, like, don't even have that many players in the Apex tiers, from my understanding. So, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of diamond players. I think the bottom tier the bottom team potato tomato is like a
literally
lot of
gold.
emerald players.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Like,
we'll
Grapes,
get
I could
there
play in the
when we get
OQs.
there.
You could play in the OQs.
Well, I don't know about me. Maybe you. At this point, I know some of our friends tried to sign up for the OQ and they actually missed the cut. So
Yes.
I don't know if I was going to be helping them out that much. We got Dorado Gaming up next, DLG. Now, this is a very interesting one as they've got a couple of players here and there, but then they have Rock Boom on their team just randomly alongside Rox908, who's now listed as a sub, but I would hope to see him actually playing in some of these games because that would bring back the rock bottom bot lane from 2023 that brought so many people joy, brought a top 2 finish in one of the open qualifiers.
Yeah, dude. The rock bottom being back is so interesting because they're with a completely random team and like they're seed 47th, so they're not exactly high elo either. But like surely the rock bottom is enough to maybe carry them to day 3, assuming Rox908 plays. I think this is a day 3 team. Like
so their support, who's Enver, is a master player as well. So have to give some respect there. Like it's not going to be like the end of the world if Rox isn't playing. He is a Taric one trick, or Taric main, I should say, which is interesting. Their top laner is Diamond 3 right now. So
yeah, that's not great. That's not great. They opened their tournament against the PP team, which God, it would be amazing if Rock Bottom beat them. So yeah, I don't know. Like I think they should at least be able to win a match in like the lower bracket. Surely, Graves,
put them at win a match.
do we give them day 3 respect?
I think we'll put them at win a match for now. Half the teams have to go here, and so we could potentially. I think they're at the top
you're right
now, and then we can
we
move
can
around
like
if necessary.
readjust as we go. All right, let's keep it moving.
We'll move on
Graves,
here
you've
to
been marking
Dorado.
off teams we've been doing, right?
Yeah, totally.
You should do that so we know who the last 5
great
are.
idea. Yeah, Dorado Gaming is next up. This roster has X-Royal, Verdict, Zepre, Nukes also on this team. So this is a roster that's relatively high up in the elo ladder. And I think will also be a pretty entertaining team to watch.
Yeah, it should be a good team. I like some of the players. Sir Zepp, I actually think pretty highly of. I think he had a great showing on Maelstrom. And now plays for, oh god,
Eutectics.
Eutectics, right?
As
he's
a
the
bottom
carry for
laner.
Eutectics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's a mid laner.
The one match I saw of him against Boston University went kind of crazy. So, yeah, I think this team, Grapes, how many teams go in the day 4 tier? It's 16
one
in the
two.
top, or sorry, I think it's just 4 teams go in the day 4 tier. Yeah. It's just 4 teams because it's the top 4 tiers are the top 16 teams. So
It should be 8. There's 8 teams that get eliminated. Oh, sorry, never mind. 4.
no,
you're
it's
right,
8.
4 teams.
Yeah, I realized the same thing. I counted exactly the same. So I think this team is probably a day 3er.
I say day 3 for now. I do think that their mid jungle Verdict and Zepre could be good. X Royal is also a player that has impressed at times as a top laner that can like play carries in some of these OQs. we can stick them here in this tier for now. We don't have anybody in that day 4 tier, but that's gonna get a little bit more selective.
Yeah, I mean day 4. Maybe we could maybe change our day 3 and day 4 tiers to, because right now I think our day 3 tier is gonna have like another 16 teams in it. Right?
Okay, so let's be a little bit more. Let's make it a little bit even. Let's shoot for like 8 and 8 then, or
yeah,
or like
yeah.
12
so
and 12 or
day
something like that.
4 potential, and day 3 hard stuck.
Sure. Or
Thoughts?
Yeah.
And then maybe we put these guys up here.
Yeah.
All right,
That
let's
sounds
do
good.
that. So
think
so
this
then
team is-
day 4 potential would be our top 24 teams, with day 3 hard stuck being our 24th,
Our last 8,
40th or whatever. Yeah.
Something like that. We'll balance it out.
Or some shit.
Um,
yeah.
Okay.
Or 24
our
to
next team
32nd. Yeah.
This is another interesting one here. A very high-low solo queue team up next. Dawg Fans. Now, this team has a lot of collegiate representation here.
Oh, wait,
mostly
sorry.
From what's up?
Really quick, before we get into Dawg Fans, Dorado Gaming opening their tournament with a great match against United Swag Factory. That's probably one of the matches to watch in round 1.
Ooh, interesting. USF, baby. Let's go.
Yeah. All right. Sorry.
Um,
Continue.
Dawg Fans. Barrack in the top lane. King Cluis and Lycamaz, mid-jungle duo. Followed by Nightstar in the bottom lane and Protoss as their support. This team confuses me, Hawk. I feel like they have a lot of really good players and a lot of players that I feel like are kind of, have yet to really prove themselves at this level just yet.
Yeah, like guys like King Clueless, Lycamaz, and Protoss have actually not really done much in tier 3 despite always kind of being around. Like they've played in plenty of OQs, and I don't know. I will say, given that our day 4 potential now is like you just need to be top 24,
I'm happy with putting this team in there.
I think this team gets there, especially because they have Barrack and Nightstar, who are 2 players that I actually think we both think fairly highly of.
Yeah.
Like I would see this team as being like a 2-3 in a regular OQ, which I feel like means your day 4 potential.
I need to see like what the rest of the teams in the final weekend tier look like, but they could be on the border for me if Barrack and Nightstar
there's no way this team is final weekend. Top 12.
I just can't. I don't have a good count in my head.
There's no way. I'm sorry.
I like this team. I like Nightstar a lot. I like Barrack a lot. And
I think this
see.
team is like bottom of day 4 potential. Also, knowing we expanded our tier, I think we should throw third party up here too.
All right, we're gonna have to start moving some people into. I think. Yeah. Okay. We'll
maybe these guys are day 3 hard sucker. Well, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. We still have a lot of teams left to go.
There's a lot
Speaking
of
teams. Duckie Getters is up next. You want to name out their roster as I go through some of the stuff over here?
Yeah. So, Duckie Getters. It is the return of everyone, the people's champion from 2024 summer that made their run to the promotion tournament, with a bit of a different retooled roster. So they're running back the bottom lane of Enthralled and Hiccup that impressed a lot of people. And then it is a top side that is a collection of like some of the most fucking random players you've ever seen. So it's Draco, Vaken, and RJS. Draco, most known for being on CLG Faith back in 2022 with that roster with like Town and Aaron. Vaken, who was a part of, I believe, CCG in the spring split. And then we have RJS, who we all know. Graves, this team is so weird. I think they're either like high-end day 4 potential or maybe absolute bottom of final weekend, but I think that's me being extremely generous, to be honest.
I think we have to remember that we like hold different players to different standards based off of like where they have been in the past. Does that make sense to me?
This is true.
Does that make sense? Like we'll talk about a player like
RJS,
like Hub or Udder, and be like, oh, this guy's like so exciting because they're a little bit newer and things like that, versus somebody like Draco, who honestly has had very similar levels of performances in terms of placements as those players. And Vaken, the same thing, was on top 8. He made like top 8, top 12 with CCG. And RJS, was in NACL last year, although he didn't do too well. And we think of them as like, oh, these guys suck. These guys are horrible, right? So I think like in general, like they're kind of on the bottom, like that. They're kind of similarly tiered in terms of like the placements that they have had. And it's just because of the fact that they have maybe been around for a while that we start to have different expectations of them. I think that this top side has a decently high floor, and I think having like a player like RJS and Vaken on this team will allow for Duckie Getters to continue to do a lot of the creative things that they were able to do in splits past when they in the last summer where they were playing the Ivern and things like that. And Enthralled and Hiccup are still a very, very good bot lane. And this is a top side with a very high floor. And so I think that, even though we are always a little bit like, oh man, like RGS is in another OQ, surely this is not going to go well. Like they're in the final weekend here for me.
I guess their final weekend. So we've already got 5 of our teams for final weekend. I think that's fine. I think they're the weakest. Well, maybe they're stronger than Akuma.
I think they're in that Akuma
area
as well.
I think they're definitely weaker than Red Note and Apex. But like I said, I think Red Note and Apex are pushing contender tier as opposed to Duckie Getters. And I will say, looking at our day 4 potential tier, this team is definitely...
They're better than those guys.
They're better than them. They're better than them. Yeah. All right. Okay. I'm good with this. And again, we can readjust anything.
Our next matchup is Eastern Michigan University.
Wait, really quick. Duckie Getters opening their tournament against Oakland University. They're the 4 seed, by the way, the Duckie Getters. So they're very high elo right now.
Yeah, which I think also helps them. Like the fact that some of these players that we haven't seen play competitive yet, or in a few years, like are still atop the elo ladder.
Real quick as well, I do want to say I'm really excited to watch Hiccup and Enthralled run it back. I loved the way that they played the game on the Duckie Getters. They were so fucking aggro in lane. It was like egregious sometimes, but it was very fun. And so shout out to them. I'm excited to watch the Duckie Getters run it back with their bottom lane.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go to Eastern Michigan University. This is a team I think at the bottom or towards the bottom of the ESC, or kind of middle of the pack of the ESC, or maybe I'm getting my partner conferences messed up, but they're in one of the partner conferences, I'm pretty sure. And they're seeded 57th. I think that they are probably towards the bottom tier, unfortunately, although maybe we can give them a little bit of an edge because of the fact that they're in like college and they play collegiate, but I don't know.
No, because Grapes, at the end of the day, this is like barely a Masters Diamond team. I mean, yes, they have played together. Like that would be the reason that they win a match. Opening their tournament against Respawn, though, Respawn heavy favorites. I unfortunately think this team is probably in the IDGAF tier. I'm sorry to say.
You know what? Fair enough. We can move on to Fantastic Five, which is the classic MEC Runback team here, Hawk. They've got Coulthro and Meslo coming back together.
This is one of the greatest rosters ever constructed.
Actually, not too bad in terms of solo queue. They're smack in the middle at 32nd seed, which means they'll be playing Exodus in round 1. Geiger, Coulthro, Meslo, and then Azog and Barlow, I think, round out this team. So some players that are really good and still are really good, as well as some boomers that are putting the shoes on for one more run,
Yeah, I mean, Geiger, Coulthro, Meslo, Azog, and honestly, all 5 of these guys, I feel like pretty known quantities at this point in their careers. Honestly, Meslo may be like the one player that's got like some sauce just because we see him top lane so much. Grapes, I think this is like a bona fide day 4 potential team. I think they're at the top of this tier right now, but I think they're like solidly outside of the final weekend tier for me because like I said, I feel like these players mostly known quantities, probably not going to punch too far above their weight class.
Yep.
But like I think they're just like a very solid like they're gonna be top of day 4 potential. I think when this is all said and done.
I think, yeah, that's. We always say this, and then recently the Coulthro teams have been getting knocked out a little bit early. They've been getting knocked out in Swiss, so this could be closer to day 3, depending on how the rest of the teams end up looking. But I think what we're gonna realize.
I mean,
here
dude,
now,
again, if this is our top 24, if these top 4 tiers are a top 24, there's no way this team is not at the top of this tier. I'm sorry.
24 versus 32. It could get interesting, I think, as we continue to move along.
I think this team is solidly day 4 potential.
Now, I'm going to try to figure out what this logo is because I am going to scroll around here.
Forever Forward.
I'm going to use their name.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, do you have something else?
I was going to comment more on the players. Azog Barlow is going to be a really interesting bottom lane just because Azog was okay when he made his return to Polestar in the summer split, but not amazing, to be honest. And like, I do kind of I'm immediately like wondering who the carry on this team is going to be, right? Because it's a lot of like solid players. And I'm interested to see if like Azog and Barlow can actually try to run some of these bottom lanes. Because Azog was known for his laning when he played back in the day when he was at his peak. So it would be interesting.
Yeah, man, this is a roster that qualified into NACL with Supernova, or Azog was a player who qualified into NACL with Supernova, so definitely a possibility. Forever Forward is the next team. FOJ, Prince, Fulls, Heretic, and Love Ego. A couple players that have bounced around some of the OQs, but they've always been towards the bottom-ish area, like so around that 32 mark. I think this is either like a win a match tier team, or maybe we just because we don't have anybody in the day 3 Hearthstuck right now, but I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. I've actually worked with Faj in the combine. They're running the Rift combine. Thought he is a player with potential. Has been pretty active on Twitter and stuff, trying to brand themselves, which is really cool. I know we've seen Love Ego somewhere. I don't remember where. Grapes. Yeah, I'm kind of down to put them in day 3 hard stuck. They are seed 48 opening their tournament against UCI, which is probably a loss. So it's going to depend on who they play in round 2.
Yep.
But Grapes, there's no way we put this team in day 3 hard stuck though and not rock bottom, right? Like
it's just like I know Rock Boom's so good, but there's like other players on this team that like he's a diamond 3 top laner, like that's the only reason that I'm like maybe
I mean,
not.
I'm down to put them high in this tier maybe for now.
Okay. We'll look at that as we continue to try to stick somebody in this day 3 hard stuck because
Yeah.
we have nobody there just yet.
Grapes, I'm immediately realizing too, one of the missing logos is going to be the second Fisher team.
Yes, and we could
So
talk
let's
about
just
them in
do them
conjunction,
together.
actually. That's not a
Yeah.
bad idea. Yeah, so Fisher College is a top 7, top 6 team in CLOL right now. And their roster consists of Bijani, Brunes, Wayna, Brabro, and Sword Blue. Now, their typical support, Magi, is not eligible to play for the A team here because of import restrictions, and so Sword Blue is going to be playing on this team. He's been part of a lot of the Bay State / Fisher rosters in the past. And then the second Fisher team, called Fisher Falcons, has some other players that I don't know too well. Panther, Lamort, Radar, Viscera, and Magi as well. Radar and Viscera, 2 players that have been in this OQ tier in years past.
Yeah, so let's talk about Fisher College first, the A team. Grapes, they opened their tournament, maybe the best match of round 1 against Kobuko's Brewery, which is a team we'll get to talk about a little bit later. I'm really interested in how this Fisher College team is going to do. I did get a note from Yanni, by the way. Their mid laner's name is pronounced Wayna.
Wayna, okay.
Yeah, so Wayna had a really good showing against Ole Miss in the series we got to watch of them. Bijani, definitely a known quality at this point. I do think Bruness, is a pretty good player and maybe their best player. I don't know if that's a hot take.
To me, when I watched some of their series, like against Winthrop and then against Ole Miss, like he stuck out to me.
Yeah,
I
think Bruness is probably their best player. I'm not sure what to expect from the bottom lane. It has been a long time since we've seen Sword Blue. I'm going to be honest. But he was good when he played. I don't know, Grapes. I feel like this team is probably day 4 potential for sure. I don't think they're day 3 hard stuck.
Definitely not. Like, well, let's remember, this is a team that is ranked higher than Western, UCI, St. Clair, Grandview. I'm just looking at other teams that are going to be participating in this OQ: USF, Weber, and OC, to just name off a bunch of teams. So they got to be that's what CeeLo
honestly, they're probably pretty high.
That's generally my take. They're probably high on the day 4 potential. And again, a team that I would be looking at is maybe sneaking into that final weekend tier, depending on what the rest of the rosters end up looking like.
Yeah, I think biggest question is really just going to be, what does their bot lane do? Because I do think their top side is pretty strong and should be enough to like dumpster most of these other teams. And I mean, even the bot lane should be good enough to dumpster most of these other teams.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to putting
honestly
this
maybe
team
they're at the top of this tier.
Of day 4 potential.
Yeah.
And then if we have an extra slot for them in final weekend, let's slot.
No, I think they have final weekend potential. I don't know if I rate them higher. I don't think I rate them higher than any of the 4 teams we have in that tier currently.
Yeah. So depending on who else you fit in this tier,
sure.
if there's an extra spot, I think Fisher could definitely be that next step team.
I'm good with that.
I think Fisher Falcons
I think this team's a threat. I think this team's a threat.
I think Fisher B could be probably our first day 3 hard stuck team.
They've got
decent players down there. Yeah.
Like, I've always been a Radar stan. They've got, like an A team support, right? Like I think this team will be fine. but at the end of the day, I don't think I don't think they have the names to punch up. I like. There's a world where they make it to day 4, but they'd be like low. However, just looking at the teams we have in this tier, I think it's fair to put them here.
Okay, fair enough. We got Flippers next up here. This is a team with a lot of really actually pretty fun players. Lancelot Link, Wenwin, Aj. Their AD carry is Flower Prince and PVS as their support. Shout out to Aegis Esports, where PVS is also a producer. So doing a little bit of double duty here this OQ.
Yeah, PVS. PVS Meta player has played in the OQs multiple times, so shout out for being a high elo team prod carry.
Yeah, this team very high in solo queue, and also they're seeded number 12th. And I think we were both particularly impressed by their solo laners in some of the OQs that happened in 2024.
Yeah, I would agree. Really quick as well, Fisher Falcons, the B team, starting their tournament against Wang. Might be a good game there. And then we have this team, Flippers. They're starting their tournament against Third Party. So another match that might immediately be interesting. Lancelot Link, in particular, was the player that I was like, God damn, this guy's the fucking GOAT when I watched him. He busted out like Garen and nutted on everyone, man. It was amazing. Like, Aj, I think it was on Morningstar White, right? Am I crazy?
No, that's HTY. Aj was on Castleberry with Castle and
right.
Star.
Right. Thank you. Sorry. Keeping my players straight. Yeah, Aj was pretty good. Like, I think the rest of these players are just like varying degrees of pretty good and fine. With the solo lanes, I agree with you kind of being the focal point. Grapes, I think this is very like either borderline, like I think they're top of day 3 hard stuck, maybe day 4 potential.
I would say top of day 3, and then again, it's like a situation of let's look at what the rest of the day 4 teams look like, because these are a lot of players that have impressed us a little bit. We haven't seen too much like extended levels of success from them, whereas some of the other players in the day 4 potential tier so far, like we have seen that level of success. I think that matchup between them and Third Party should maybe even move down to day 3 now that I'm just looking over some of this again. But we'll have to count out the rest of our teams as we continue to move along.
The match against Third Party is going to be a big, I think it's going to be a big litmus test for both these teams. Because also PVS has been talking some shit in the Salty Runback Discord. Join the Salty Runback Discord if you want to be in on that.
Yeah, it seems like scrims are going well for this team, which is good. But I want to see what they look like kind of on
the stage,
the competitive stage before we say any more about them.
Yeah.
Foxtrot is our next team. They're seated a little bit lower here, I think towards the 50s. Currently sitting at 55th seed. They have Peter Griefer, Asu, Ostrich, Rex, and Call Out Mayday. I don't think we need to talk too much about this one. Let's move on to Galaxy Gaming because they
starting
are
against
a team that I think,
starting against Dawg Fans.
Okay, I think Galaxy Gaming is a team that does deserve some conversation here, and I think this is our first team in the contenders tier.
Yeah, we can just put them there immediately. We were having this conversation in the Salty Runback Discord also earlier today. Galaxy Gaming, I think they are very clearly the 5th seed, where you have Citadel and Tempest. General consensus is that they're at the top, with then like a little bit of a gap, and then you have near Airport a little bit of a gap. You have Respawn at number 4, and then a little bit of a gap, and you have Galaxy at number 5. This team comprised of Cozy, City Witty, Ariandel, Inori B, and Kim Down. I think really what we can say is that these are 5 players that we consider to be at or near the top end of tier 3, but none of them are like bona fide NACL superstars, right?
Superstars, no, but I think you're being a little disrespectful to Kim Down right
now.
I
was about to say Kim Down did was solid in the NACL for 2 years, and I definitely want to give that respect. Maybe balanced out a little bit by the fact that I think Inori B is kind of like the one risky player that maybe has to prove his worth on this team. Not that he hasn't been good, but you get what I'm saying. Like he's a bit of a riskier player. He's the unproven quantity, I think, on this team, at least compared to everybody else. But I think this team is absolutely a contender. Like, I don't think that there's really any other way around it. This top side is fantastic. I think especially playing with Cozy and Ariandel, I think City actually has a lot of room to pop off on this team.
Yeah, I think
which usually goes well for City teams.
so. Cozy and City, they played together on AOE at the end of the NACL season, where they promoted or kept their spot, I should say, in the promotion tournament, and then they teamed up with Ariandel during ACL, ended up doing pretty well. Um, I think that this team is going to be very good. I think if a Nori B can like take another step and be a top tier AD carry, this team can be in that qualification
Yes.
level.
Yeah.
Ariandel is playing the best League of Legends I think I've ever seen from him at the end of his 2024, and he's continuing to climb the solo queue ladder. Very
Don't give
excited
this
to
man
watch
a
him
soul.
play competitive again. Don't give him a soul. Yeah, I think this team in the contenders tier, probably towards the top of contenders tier, as is I think the next team that we're going to talk about, which is Gravity.
Really? You think you have Gravity that high? Okay, we'll have a conversation about this. So Gravity, Alorum, Shimmer, Robbie Bob, Sagewabe, and All Calamity. Really quick, Galaxy starts their tournament against OVO Demons. So Gravity, they are the 7th seed. They start against Desperado Esports, who I believe we already talked about. This is a really interesting team because you have Alorum and Robbie Bob in the solo lanes, which are like some of the they are tier 3 OGs. They've been around forever and they've played at a high level, and these are players that I think we would argue like generally play at a tier 2 level for most of their careers. Robbie Bob, first tournament in spring last year, was the GOAT. Wasn't really that great the rest of the tier 3 season, but then in CeeLo was like fucking like prime faker, dude. Like that's just how Robbie Bob works. And then we have Shimmer and Sagewabe, who both to kind of different degrees had really impressive showings in 2024 compared to expectations. Sagewabe really making waves in the promotion tournament with Polestar, going all the way to that final promotion game against AoE. And then Al Calamity, who is a complete unknown quantity that a lot of people have been saying they've seen good things out of in leagues like the ACL. So, Grapes, I actually think I have this team outside of contenders, but I think they are definitely in final weekend.
Okay. I could definitely they're in one of the two for sure. They'd be towards the bottom. We're saying 3 teams go in the qualify for NACL tier, and then 3 or 4 teams in the contenders tier, right? And then
it's 3 teams in qualify for NACL with then 9 other teams between contenders and final weekend, and we already have 5 teams there.
Okay. So if we're balancing out to be 5 and 5, do I think Gravity is better than this Red Note team? Like the ceiling of Red Note, probably not, but the floor of Red Note, yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'll ask you this: Do you think this Gravity team is better than the Apex team?
I think if I was seeding them right now, they'd be very close, and I might give the edge here to Gravity. I think Sagewabe had a great promotion tournament. Al Calamity currently playing on Kent State, which is a team very similarly placed to Eastern Michigan in the ESC as well. But he's a very high-ranked support player. He's been getting a lot of praise from different analysts and combines. And then I think this top side is actually very, very good. You have Alorum and Robbie Bob, who are going to be very stable players. I think Robbie Bob can be a bigger role of like a bigger carry player on this team. And then it's going to be on Shimmer to make something
I was about to say,
with this team.
I think so much of Gravity's tournament is going to ride on Shimmer. I think Shimmer's good. He's been at Maryville hanging out with Yuji for a while. I think he would have to take a really big jump. You know what, though? But I think looking at the other teams, I actually do think I agree with you. I think this team is better than that Apex team.
Yeah.
So I'm fine to put them at bottom of
contenders for now. Yeah, and we'll see as we continue to move along.
We can keep going.
Okay. Who's Gravity playing against in round 1?
Desperado.
Okay. We got Grandview University up next. Now, we already have mentioned a couple of Grandview players, notably Nightstar, who's playing on a different OQ roster. So this is the team that Grandview's actually been running out in MEC this year, in around the top 20 of CLOL. It's Ariana, who's coming over from Poland, then followed by Castle, Jinkal, Lelio, and Inflame. So some new additions to this Grandview team that I think overall have maybe made them look a little bit worse. They did drop a series to Purdue Northwest last week in the MEC regular season, but I think overall a pretty solid team. I would say this. I know we have a lot more teams to go through, so I'm just trying to get us through right now. I'd say Grandview in that like day 3 tier for me.
Yeah, I think their solo lanes are good. Well, I think Jinkal is good, and then Fisher Drake was giving some hype towards Ariana in the top lane. They're either like bottom of day 4, top of day 3. I think I'm fine to put them here.
Yeah, I think maybe Flippers is a little bit higher. It's
Yeah,
pretty
I'm good with
close
this.
though
I'm good
between
with
those
this.
two teams. Grandview a little bit lower in the elo department than the likes of the Flippers, which is just
Starting,
it's kind of my tiebreaker, you know?
yeah, starting against Brewton Parker College.
Okay, I feel like that's going to be a decent win for them, and then we'll move on, and then we'll see what they look like after that. High
Yep.
Alert is the next team up. This team, I think, is towards the bottom. Let me double check. They are seated number 50th, so not totally towards the bottom,
I
but
think
a
we
lot
just
of
put
players
them
that I
here.
don't know too well. We could stick them down in that lower tier. This one is the Vancouver team, Vancouver Impulse,
Impact.
51st seed. Sorry,
Go to top
Impact.
laner. Yeah.
Yeah. Vancouver Impact also, I think, in that same tier. They are seated right below High Alert in terms of elo. And I think we're gonna breeze through a couple of them here because Indigo is seated 54th, and they're also don't have a ton of players that I recognize right off the bat. Let's talk about Near Airport first while I try to figure out what this bird logo is. But
All
Near
right, sounds
Airport,
good.
this is another relatively self-explanatory one.
Yeah, Near Airport. Guys, this is the Double Lift team. They finally branded themselves. I don't know why they didn't lead with this, but it's fine. It is TF Blade in the top lane, the big Maverick up there, and then you've got Spica, Pobelter / Jensen, Double Lift, and Biofrost. General consensus is that this team is the number 3 Grapes. I do think we are putting this team into qualify for the NACL. We've already talked about this team at length on the pod, so honestly, I think we can just kind of keep it moving. But yeah, Near
Did you
Airport.
see them scrim against Maryville? They got
we got the number
swept, I
3.
think.
Yeah, they have basically gotten like sent flying by all the NACL teams they've scrimmed against, but then they've looked pretty good against all of the tier 3 teams they've scrimmed, which I think kind of lives up to that expectation that we said of like they might not be that good in NACL, but like they beat Apex in their scrim block and they also beat Respawned. So like that's 2 pretty good wins for them. Yeah, I don't really have much else to say. I think we can generally keep it moving here with Near Airport.
I would say definitely in that qualify for NACL tier, and just looking at specifically, what does TF Blade look like in its first competitive game in like 10 years at this point, and then just how well their mentals are going to stick together and how much effort they're going to really put into this as the weeks go on. But
Yeah.
they're going to qualify in, I think.
So they're on the same side of the bracket as oh lord. Hang on.
So they got Respawn on their side of the bracket. They have Wang. They have Duckie Getters kind of in that same area as well. And just in terms of the teams that they could potentially be facing off against in that qualification match, that best of 5, if they are able to run through the upper bracket.
Yeah, exactly. I do think this team probably gets. Actually, they might not get bumped to the lower bracket. They can qualify without facing the Citadel or Tempest, which is pretty big for them, I think.
Definitely. Just one of those teams is going to get the better odds, and it turns out it was them. So
Yep.
This one is K2 Esports, and they are seated 61st. I think we lost your tier list here, Hawk, for a second.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I was clicking around.
I think we can stick K2 in the bottom tier. They're seated 63rd or something. They're not
we can keep it moving.
going to be too good, or probably have too much of a chance, especially because they're going to be playing against some really good teams later on. Next one is NACL Esports. This is actually an interesting team to me. They've got Fiji, Dumpa, I think Yoru, Idol, and Shinhari or JZ Heal. This is a team that made top 16 from being a bottom tier contender or being a bottom tier team in Swiss in the spring split, I believe.
With mostly a different roster, though, right?
I know Fiji, Dumpa, and Idol, I think, were all on that team.
Really?
And it's just, I don't remember what the mid and support looked like, but yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I feel bad because the next level team was such a cool story, and I actually don't really remember their roster that well because we didn't stream any of their games, unfortunately. I don't know, Grapes. I feel like this is definitely a tier 3 team. If I can find their seed
Right.
next.
So this was the team that had Asilla on it. He was like their mid laner. He led them on this big run to the 3-2. And they had Yoru, who is currently on UC Davis as their support. He's currently listed as a sub, which to me
what
just
seed
speaks
are
to the
they?
fact that they're like 25th or so. They're like or 27th. So they're right
Okay.
below Fisher, right above teams like Calamity and Fantastic Five.
Yeah, next level. They start their tournament against Don't Ban Viego, who I believe we had in the bottom tier, if I'm not mistaken.
I think they're one of the teams that isn't on this list yet. So
Or is it on the okay? Yeah, I don't know. I think they're probably just day 3 hard. I feel like they're like a bona fide day 3 team. You know what I mean? Where like they got some
should be day
shooters,
3.
they're probably gonna win a couple games, but at the end of the day, like I don't think they're really in the upper echelon conversation.
I did like what I saw specifically out of Idol, who is their AD carry. In some of the games that I did watch from them, and Asilla, of course, also on that team. I think day 3 makes decent sense for them. They're probably in the top half. I think their seeding is very respective of the average expectation for this roster.
Yeah, would agree.
Okay, next up, going to do a little scrolling through the logos to make sure I have this name right, and it is Novasphere Gaming, next team on our tier list. There's a lot of logos and a lot of new logos here, which is always a cool thing to see. Novasphere, Hawk, who's on their roster?
So they have the Slam Boy, Snoop Dunk, Spork, Soldier, but like Soul, you know? And then they have Beep, who is the backup support for, or well, maybe the third string support for Winthrop University, but at least plays for their B team. Beep is the only player that I know on this team.
Yep. One challenger player, that is Slamboy. He is an 80 carry / top lane like hybrid. It looks like he's playing mostly Tristana and Vladimir in solo queue, so a bit of a weirder champ pool there. And the rest of the team's GM Master. So
Yeah.
not bad. I think they're probably just given the solo queue rankings, either in win a match or like bottom of day 3.
I think they're in win a match. I think this is a fair ranking. They start against Ocean's Echo.
All right, well, we'll get to that team in a little bit. Novasphere also just in the top half of solo queue rankings right now. Who the hell is the McChicken?
We can move
Don't
on to
ban
OC
Viego.
while you-
Oh, I was wrong. No, this is Don't Ban Viego. Okay,
Oh,
let's
shit.
talk about them.
Why is
let's
this Don't
see.
Ban Viego?
I don't know. Apparently, it looks like if you zoom in on the logo, it has like these little angry eyes on it. Maybe that's like the Viego there. Or maybe he's just mad. Maybe the burger is mad that they banned Viego. Jinsung, Tenfold, Mobigon, Unless, and Dylan. This just reminds me of Pick Me Galio in terms of the naming conventions.
Yeah.
Do have a former challenger on their team from last year, and then a couple of Master GM players. So I think Elo-wise, this team is not bad, actually. So maybe that even puts them in the win a match tier, just because I think some of the other teams in this tier don't have that.
I mean, Grapes, they're starting against Next Level, which they're in like the lower mid category of Elo. So right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We have 12 teams in this bottom tier. Let's come back to them, I think, maybe. Because, maybe just on Elo alone they jump up, but like I don't know anything about this team.
Yeah, they're seeded 38th, which means they'll have a relatively easy lower bracket matchup if they do lose to Next Level. So that's a good thing to say for them.
That's true. Yeah.
Speaking of that, like win a match area tier team, Oklahoma Christian University is up next now. This team did actually take down University of South Florida in a matchup in NACL Super Conference before their South Conference playoffs begin. If you want to know more about CLOL, there's a new episode of CLOL Office Hours also dropping today on the Salty Runback Patreon, so make sure to check that out. They got Batao, Emps, Ejosu Sawashi, and I forget the name of their support off the top of my mind, but they have a player who's also an import from there.
Kairos.
Yes. So
I believe a Turkish
middle
player,
of the
if I'm
pack.
not mistaken.
Yes. Top 20-ish in the CLOL. They've been in the top 25 every week. And so I think they're probably in that like day 3
Yeah,
tier.
I mean they're GPU tier.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think they're a little bit weaker than GVU, perhaps. They had a bad loss to South Florida to start their season that they have now actually redeemed in the Super Conference. I think the main thing, Josu, Emps, and Batao are the players to look out for on this team. Batao in particular. CBLOL representation had a pretty good showing. A great Poppy player from, I think he played for Kaboom. He was on a bad team, but I thought Batao himself was pretty decent.
Yeah.
A lot of top lane talent in the CBLOL. And Josu, I think, is a player that's shown a lot of potential as well. Also active on Twitter, trying to brand themselves. Like, yeah, I think this OC team is going to be in the mix, but at the end of the day, I think they're just another one of the mid-tier collegiate teams.
Yeah, I think putting them right with Grandview is a great idea, as we can move on to Ocean's Echo, our next team here on the tier list. Where are they in terms of seeding? Ocean's Echo. There's a lot of tabs that we're like kind of going through right now.
Yeah.
Not
If you,
super
I've been
organized right
constantly staring to the side because I'm looking at the bracket and all the
but
rosters.
they are seed 35. They've got Aquanic on their team, who is I think the mid laner or the AD carry for Michigan State University, who's one of the top teams in the North Conference this season. So pretty average elo team. They got Dravenbaka on their team, who I think is also some sort of streamer personality, I think. And our Grandmaster average.
Yeah. Grapes, what seed did you say the team was?
35th.
35th. Starting against
Novasphere. That's playing against Novasphere.
They're maybe they're borderline win a match. Like similarly, even if they lose to Novasphere, they probably have an easier day, like lower bracket game that they could pick up. They have Aquanic, who's the GOAT. I know you're a big Aquanic stan.
Yeah, I had Michigan State in my top 25 for 1 week. So
yeah,
I think they're in a very like Novasphere is in the same tier, so I'm happy with this.
Yeah, I think I'm fine with this. All right.
Okay, who's up next? This is Oakland University. Now, this is such an interesting team to me, Hawk. Oakland finished top 8 in the North Conference playoffs last year. This year, they did not compete in any CLO conference, partner or regional. And then they just showed up to the St. Clair land last week and won a couple of games against some of the bottom tier teams and actually took a game off of Converse in a game that looked like it was massive draft diff, but still taking a game off of a team like Converse is something to be impressed by. So I think you have to give this team a little bit of respect. Overall, they are seated very low. They are seated 61st in terms of ELO, which means that they're in one of the bottom tiers. I just don't know if giving them the edge because of the fact that they got that Converse win is deserving or not.
I was about to say it would literally only be because they have beaten Converse that I put them up a tier at all. Fuck it. I mean, I'm down to do it just for the vibes. Shout out Collegiate,
Yeah, shout out Collegiate. We're gonna give them a little bit of a boost because being in
they got that big win. We'll pay some respect.
Yeah. Okay, so it looks like we've actually evened out our bottom 2 tiers a decent amount. We're gonna flip that around.
Still more teams to put down there too.
The 64th seed Potato Tomato is the next logo up. And I think we're just going to stick them.
Yeah, they're unfortunately low elo. Shout out to Saki, though, who's one of the managers for the team. Hangs out in the Kangas court sometimes, plays some games. So shout out Sock, but yeah, I think your team is probably not doing much. I'm sorry.
And they have the luxury of playing against Near Airport in round number 1. So pretty good honor that you guys get there.
Yes.
Prosperity Esports is the next team. This actually was a roster that was announced a little bit earlier than some of the other ones. They are currently seated 31st, so again, right in the middle of the pack. And the notable names here are Skoon, who has been around the space for a little bit. He always comes back to some of these OQs and he has that 100 Thieves win, and that's all I remember. They also have Kongzi, who's a bot laner who's been high elo for a while and also is currently playing for Nova, one of the best teams in the NGC AAE.
Yeah, you also have 67, who I worked with at the Combine for running the Rift as well.
Is that their top laner?
Yes, top laner. Grapes, I think this is either high tier win a match or low tier day 3 hard stuck. Just based off of elo and having a couple of names. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess it depends on whether or not we think they're a top 32 team,
Yeah, so I didn't see. So it looks like 67 is playing on an alt name. His name is Man in the Arena in terms of his IGN. So I didn't know that. But this
at
is
least
also
on the quest sheet, he is listed as 67.
I totally believe you. I wouldn't be surprised. He's also their highest elo player right now. He's the only challenger one on the team. So
yeah, had a good game when I worked with them. He was on the other team actually. Now that I realize, but yeah.
So if you were impressed by somebody like him, he's also a name that's been around things like ACL and things like that. I'm pretty sure. Let's put him in day
at
3
some
tier.
point we got to start putting guys in day 3 as well.
Let's fill in the day 3 a little bit.
All right, let's do that.
I think they're definitely better than the Rock Boom team. They're more well-rounded for sure.
I would agree that they're at least more well-rounded than the Rock Boom team. Dude, I got to give my boy Kongji for playing for Nova. That's 10 minutes from where I grew up. A little bit more than that, but although Kongji was he was a jungler for a while, so I don't know what the fuck he's doing at AD carry, but
he's been playing AD carry at least recently, the last couple of years. Yeah.
He definitely was a jungler before, though, right? I didn't make that up.
You're gonna have to fact check. I don't know.
All right, I don't care
exactly.
enough. Let's keep going.
Respawn, I think we're gonna have to take a couple of minutes on because they're on the border, I think, right now. But it just depends on what you think about them versus a team like Tempest. We have not seen Tempest play in any scrims, at least publicly. Although they are streaming the Double Lift team today, actually, on stream as you're watching this episode. So go check that out. I think that'll give us a little bit of a better read of potentially how good these two teams are, Hawk. But I think right now we're considering these guys to be 3-4, and one of these two is going to get the spot if the other two teams above them do not choke.
Yeah, it's like Respawn near Airport and Tempest all kind of in a scrum. Respawn didn't do too well against Near Airport in their scrims, but like again, it's just scrims, and I think especially Respawn, this is a team that's definitely, I think, gonna be trying a lot of stuff out. They got some young players. I love this roster. Lawrence, Chad, and Shochi. This is a top side that is, like low NACL, like high tier 3 caliber, with Shochi being a real standout for me. And then they have the bottom lane of Sushi and Mixture. And on our last episode of Salty Runback Grapes, I said I'm going to put pressure on the kid. I think Sushi needs to become the AD carry that he's got to be a tier 2 AD. He's got to put up and be the carry for this team. And I think if he can do that, I think Respawn can qualify for the NACL. But if he can't, his team might drop out earlier. And so I think for that reason, I have them as the number 1 team in contenders. I think I have them on the outside looking in. But like, this is a team that I'm very excited to watch. I think they're one of the teams I'm definitely rooting for in this qualifier, just from like a narrative perspective, and I really want to see them do well.
I agree with you basically all the way here. It's just so hard to pick one of these teams to be out of that group. Like, if we were doing like a kind of a real tier list, like all 4 of these guys would kind of be in that top tier, I think. But because we are trying to structure it in a way that like separates the teams that we think are going to qualify in, I think I'm okay with right now sticking Respawn just on the outside, although they are, top 8 in terms of solo queue. They have a lot of really, really well-known players on this team. It's just like some of the scrim results that we've been hearing, maybe not going as well right now, but still a lot of season. It's not until like week 2 where they really have to get stuff together, because their first week of the games should be rather easy.
Yeah, I mean, this team absolutely should still be here at the end of the tournament. They, that's an easy expectation. I guess, Grapes, I mean, if we're deciding between qualify for NACL, here's something we can consider is if they were to play a best of 5 against Tempest right now, Hoarder, I think, is generally considered to be the weakness on Tempest. Is Lawrence the kind of player that's going to eat him up and punish? And then on the other side of the coin, like Chad against Kisno should be fairly even. Shochi against Dark Wings fairly even, if not both of those being slightly Tempest favored. And then are Sushi and Mixture going to be able to contend with the Aaron Manui bottom lane? Another huge question mark. Like, I just think it's not clear.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's hard to tell. I think let's leave it for now. Let's just move Tempest
based on scrim bucks. Respawn is 4, and I'm fine to put them there, even though I think I've said this earlier, in my personal power rankings, I might swap them.
Let's move Tempest into the qualify for NACL tier just to kind of get them out of the way, as we have a lot more teams to still go through, and we're already well over an hour at this point. Slated Six is our next team up. And by the way, if you want to learn more about Tempest, just go watch our last Salty Runback episode. We talked about them a good amount as well. Slated Six. This is a very fun team as well. Dr. Calculus, Bio, the duo on the top side for Duckie Getters, and then Adam now, Hub and Tub, which I think is Baruto, as their support. That was at least what was listed in the initial Twitter roster announcement, but this guy's
the
changed his name
Hubby bot lane,
twice.
or the Tubby Hubby.
Tubby Hubby in the bottom side. It's a good mix, Hawk, of some players that we have seen perform at a top 4 promotion tier level, like Bio and Dr. Calculus, and then some other younger players that, Dr. Calculus and Bio are also new, very, very new, but they had immediate success. Adam and Hub are players that, while their teams didn't necessarily hit that top 8, they were on the name list together, and those two specifically, I think, definitely impressed us while we were watching.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this team has taken the best parts of like other kind of random rosters, put them together, and you have Thin Uncle Phil coaching. Yeah, Grapes, I love this team. I'm absolutely rooting for them. I think they have day 4 potential as well. I think they very clearly have day 4 potential. I think that is like the obvious tier to put them in. Biggest question for me is can Dr. Calculus and Bio recreate what they did on the Duckie Getters? Because I thought they were the 2 best players on that team.
Yeah, in terms of like individual performances, I would say absolutely. Dr. Calculus was the best top laner, first team top laner in OQs.
No, he was second team, but he should have been first team because all these fuckers voted for Dragoon, even though he was clearly team, worse the whole split.
First team in my mind.
Yes.
Team in my mind. No offense,
Yes.
Dragoon.
I love you, Dragoon. No shade, but you did not deserve that award. I'm sorry.
Do you not think this team is better than Akuma? I think they are. I think it's close at the very least.
I
think the question is, I guess it's a lot of upside that I'm looking for.
It's a ton of upside. Like, dude, at the end of the day, as good as I think Calculus, Bio, and Utter are, like that's fucking. Sorry, I almost looked at the wrong team. That's Porsche, Will, and Sudsy right there. You know what I mean? Like
bot lane though. I mean.
But like even then,
Calculus outperformed.
Again, you're talking about like expectations, right? Like yeah, Draxer and Jito were kind of out on, but like they're not gonna suck. Like like they're gonna be fine probably.
They'll be fine, but I don't know. Like Hub is somebody. Hub's KDAs. Like if you go look at it, like the match history that he had in spring, it's kind of nuts. And I think we can very easily say that Calculus outperformed a player like Porsche. Specifically.
No, I agree. I agree that Calculus is better than Porsche, but is Bio
I think Bio
better than Will?
Well, they played in the same qualifier last split, and I'm pretty sure that Bio was on an All-Pro team. I don't know if Will was at the end of the split.
No, Will was not.
You know what I mean? Like it's I think it's relatively comparable between these two teams. I know that I feel like the Akuma team is a team that has like a higher floor. But I think Slated Six might have the higher ceiling.
And you think Slated is also stronger than Fisher?
I think it's close. They're also coached by Thin Uncle Phil here for this OQ.
No, I know. That's a huge... I mean, Thin Uncle Phil is like the talent development guy. I'm just
taking a quick look. I'm taking a quick look along the rest of the... Real quick, I'm taking a look across the rest of the rosters. And we still have spots in final weekend. I think this team is
we're
at
good.
least in the final weekend here.
Slated 6. Don't let me down. I'm rooting for you boys.
Who is this next one? Starry Sky is our next team here on the tier list.
Who Slated 6 plays in the first round, by the way. Should be a great matchup.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Now, this is a team of a lot of Ottawa players. They also have Johnny Rockets, who is their top laner for the University of Health Sciences and Pharmacy Eutectics. They have Prod, Blonde, and Plux. And then their AD carry is going to be Mitarima, who has been also on these different OQ teams with Blonde in the past. I think this is very solidly, at the very least, a day 3 team.
It's a day 3
I think we can stick them right in that tier because Ottawa is a team that has, very solid players, and I think these are the 3 best players on that Ottawa team right now. The problem is that they are kind of auto-filled with the rest of their lineup, and so filling them in with people like Johnny Rockets and like Mitarima, I think is going to help them a lot.
Yeah, I think this team is really obviously a hard-stuck day 3 team. Like, it's at best a mid-tier collegiate team, and like I think guys like Johnny Rockets will probably just be like just as good as their regular top laner. I think they're a day 3 hard-stuck.
Well, they don't really like right now. The problem with Ottawa is that they don't have a top laner AD carry. Like they're like playing people. They're playing Riverside in the top lane off roll. They're playing like diamond players at AD carry.
But
so
I guess my point is like I don't think you Ottawa would suddenly. Well, that's the wrong Ottawa. I don't think Ottawa would suddenly become some crazy contender that's above GVU if they even had real players in those roles. Which is why I think like.
No, they're definitely below GVU. I'm just saying, like, supplementing those players puts them like in a similar tier. Whereas if it was just Ottawa signing up, they'd be lower.
I still don't know if I agree with that, just because I still think they'd be day 3. But yeah, regardless, I think we're in agreement here.
Okay. I think that they'd be lower without. I've been maybe a bit of an
maybe. I mean, I've been really out on Ottawa. I've not had them in my top 25 the entire year, just for the record. So
same here.
Yeah.
Saving Private Dozer. I think this is the best name and the best logo out of any of the teams here in the OQs.
Nah, disrespectful to Duckie Getters still.
Did you see the logo? It's a soldier saluting with Drew Dozer.
I know it's a good logo, but
it's
the
awesome.
Duckie Getters. Duck knife.
This is basically all of the ISU guys that are not playing on other teams right now. So
Yes.
they got PCL, they have Cross, they have Dozer in the mid lane. Not they have Makil, not Fataken, and then they have Command Attack playing support. He's a guy who can he's still a high ranked player. He's still got the juice, and it means that's going to be maximum cooking in the draft here for this team, who I think is actually going to be a very solid one.
Yeah, I think this team's hype as fuck. I love this team. I think very highly of Cross. I think very, very highly of Dozer. PCL was like surprisingly fantastic when he played for, I believe it was Gentle Hearts with Cross last year. Command Attack's on the team. They start against OC, which is going to be an electric matchup. Definitely a rivalry game out of the gate. Grapes, I think they're day 4 potential towards the bottom end.
Day 4 potential, yeah. Fisher is definitely better than this team with some of the pieces that are missing from ISU, even though ISU is like the higher ranked team in the polls right now. So saving Private Dozer, I think they have decent upside as well. Like a player like Cross, we haven't been able to see him, really play too much recently. So I'm excited to just see that at the very least as well.
Yeah, no, I think this is a good team. I think they'll be a threat, but at the end of the day, not a main contender. Grapes, we got to keep it moving though. We're really going long. St. Clair. It's just St. Clair. They got Sama, Maddie, Flocon, Lig, and Miracle. They start their tournament against. I'm trying to find it. Saints. Where the heck are they? Against Vancouver Impact.
Some Canada rivalry. Nice.
Hell yeah. What do you think? I mean, I think they're just in the same tier, no?
I think they're like right below Dozer tier, if not maybe slightly higher. I think definitely below Fisher, as Fisher is higher ranked in the CLO Hub poll than St. Clair. St. Clair's also looked relatively shaky. They've actually brought in Ricky to start playing for this team. He was playing for them in the St. Clair LAN, where they both took a game off of Northwood and then also made it all the way to the finals, but also lost to Western that same weekend. So I think right around day 4 potential is a good spot for them.
Yeah, and so Boschetti is on the roster, and then they also have someone named Warren G
That's
#smoke.
Ricky.
I'm wondering if that's Ricky. Yeah, okay.
That is Ricky, yeah. That's the same guy that was playing at the LAN, and then Sama's listed as a sub for them right now.
Yep. So they've got, I think this is a good team. I think they're very solidly top 4 potential. Like they're just an easy add to this tier. We can keep it moving.
Yep. The next team is the Agency. The Agency has a very fun logo. They're seated 49th, though. I think we can probably put them in like that borderline between win a match and the IDGAF tier.
Yeah, I don't know anyone on this team. I'm just gonna put them down here. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, we could still fit 3 more teams down there. I think we're good, Grapes.
Okay. Now, this is a fun one actually here. Titan Esports has solidified GFP, Frozen Titan, Paragon, and Garrett Meyerson making a run back here from CLO over to the OQs. This team has some like retired players, some players who don't play too much, but also some guys who, when they did play, were at a top 16 level. So I think there is a conversation to be had about these guys.
Yeah, this team is funny. I like this roster. Grapes, I think as far as the tier list is concerned, they are solidly day 3 hard stuck. But I think this roster is really funny. It's like Paragon and Frozen Titan played on the, what was it, the Clown rosters, right? Last year?
Yes, Clown Gaming.
Solidified and GFP have been knocking around the scene, kind of playing all right for a while, and then Garrett's on the team. Shout out Garrett.
Challenger player.
I know he's like Grandmaster. Yeah, I think this team's day 3 hard stuck. They have great jerseys, by the way. Shout out Titan Esports just as a whole for what they've been doing in the scene for the last year.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that day 3 makes a lot of sense for them. They are a team that I think could have a little bit of upside, and I think are in the same tier of like a next level, like a Prosperity, and maybe some of those lower tier CLO teams that are in. Speaking of lower tier CLO teams, we got Toronto Metropolitan University, a team that
they start against High Alert, by the way. All right,
sorry,
cool.
I keep forgetting to
it's fine.
let you.
You don't like passing it to me. I get it. I'm kidding.
Toronto Metropolitan, top 4 in East last year, bottom 16 in East this year. They failed to make it out of Swiss, unfortunately. they are a bit lower on the seeding charts in terms of just the CLOL teams. And so I think that
Yeah.
makes it a little bit tougher for them. But what do you think about TMU?
Starting against Orange Odyssey, Grapes, I think they can pick up a game. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they are still a good CLOL team. Good kind of in air quotes. They're not complete randoms. I don't know. I would also be fine with just putting them in the bottom if you think that's where they're at. Maybe it just depends on who we have. I mean,
Yeah,
come on, we put
I think
Oakland
it
here. We got to
depends.
put TMU here too.
I mean, Oakland made playoffs last year too in the North Conference, so I guess they're relatively similar. Um, yeah,
Yeah, but making playoffs in North is definitely not as impressive as East, I think.
yeah. Also, TMU got like a bit of a scam bracket where they like beat a mental booming UF Toronto team, and then
Yeah.
the committee voted in BU over them because we thought that their record and their resume was a
I
little
mean,
bit better.
I know, but I think they're gonna win a match. I think they're gonna win a match. We also need 16 teams in this tier, Grapes. So
That's true. That's true. I mean, we're gonna probably fill a little bit of that out here now with not this team yet,
not
but
UCI.
University of California Irvine.
They may be
is next
chokers,
up.
but
Nope, they're 17th seed. We actually did some content with them. Talked to Zhao Danny on our second episode of Semi Pro POV. If you want to check that out on our Patreon page as well. Strumpus, Rosethorn, Zhao Danny, Gorica, and Cerulean. Now the interesting thing, Hawk, that I heard from Danny is that they are very excited for the OQs, obviously, but also Danny said that he thinks Gorica is actually playing way better this year than he has over the past couple years when he was on UCI. And that personally excites me because when we seen him at his ceiling, that was like the Taco Gaming era, the Golden Guardians era, when he was very, very good.
can confirm in their series against Weber State, Gorica was absolutely the series MVP. Gorica had a fantastic series. And was
Yeah.
was one of the main reasons that they won. Him and Cerulean looked really good together. So yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna say it's like peak Gorica, but at the very least, it's not mega washed Gorica like what we saw in the last couple
Yeah.
of years. I think.
I would definitely agree with you there. As let's put them right next to St. Clair
I was
because
about to
that's
say,
where a
I
lot
think
of people have
they're
them.
they're right up here in this mix with Fisher and all of these like high tier collegiate teams.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. These are like the top 10 in CLOL, and then Fantastic Five, who's just an
Yeah.
amalgamation of CLOL players.
Worth noting as well, Rosethorn was a big offseason pickup for UCI for anyone that's not been following CLOL. Also had a decent series against Weber State. Player with NACL experience. I think he does help elevate this team compared to Mike Young.
Yeah, Rosethorn was like in the NACL for so many years, so he definitely is a very solid player on this team. He's apparently also like their lead shot caller, which is
Yep.
a good thing for
And
them.
starting against Forever Forward.
Let's talk about this next Warwick team, which I don't think has like a name attached to it, but let's just use this one because I haven't seen another team or logo for them. Let's use this logo to talk about Kobuko's Brewery for a little bit because their logo on Twitter is like also like a dog kind of thing, and so maybe it's
Sure.
similar enough. This team also pretty fun. They're playing as Fisher, as you said earlier on in the episode in that first round, and they have gotten basically a lot of UTM and then some of their friends. It's Jisung, and followed by Munchie, Papa or Conveying, and then Aito and AB as their starting five.
Yeah, this is a really fun team. Munchie is definitely, in my opinion, the best player on this team. Alongside AB, they play together at University of Toronto, Mississauga, which has been having a great CLOL season so far, I think, against expectations. Jisung, namely a part of, I want to say, that 300 team. He played for somebody last year, too.
He's on Northeastern right now, too, with Hiccup.
Right. Papa, I believe, is still the substitute mid laner for Winthrop University, was on Reluminate, and Aito's been around on the scene for a little bit. Grapes, so I will say, technically, our day 4 potential and our day 3 hardstuck tiers are full. We have 8 teams in both of them, but we don't have to do it like that. Like, maybe we just tier list the teams based on like how good we think they'll be, and then acknowledge that people might get bumped down.
Wait, how is that possible? Because we don't have 32 teams in our bottom 2 tiers.
Well,
like,
that's the
a
problem.
long shot.
Our middle tiers are full. We don't have 32 teams in our bottom.
Oh. Hold on. 3, 6. I think we could still put some team. I think this is definitely a team that's
Yeah, right. I'm
going
going to say, what I was saying
this
is,
year's.
if we want to just tier list the teams based on how good we think they're going to be, I think they're day 4 potential.
I think they are day 4 potential as well. I put them above third party, lower than the Drew Dozer team.
I was gonna say, yeah, I think they're like kind of towards that end of this tier. Yeah, so we'll fill up these middle tiers a little bit more. We're probably not gonna fully fill the bottom tiers, and I think that's fine because at the end of the day, it's a tier list, right? So
agree.
we're kind of seeing like what are the where do these teams like end up based on our expectations, and obviously someone's gonna have to move around depending on what actually happens.
Yeah, I think that this team has high upside. UTM, I think, is my like 11th seed CLO team. They're like
Yeah,
right
they've really
after
climbed the ranks. They
St.
were like
Clair.
outside of people's top 25 to start the season, and they're like mid to high teens now.
Yeah, and I think Papa coming in is huge. I think Jisung is probably an upgrade over Master Rabbits, or very close to Master Rabbits at the very least. So I think this team's going to be very much on that similar tier. And I think all these
Yeah.
teams in day 4 potential are very good, and I'm very excited for all of them. And
All right,
it's
Grapes,
gonna be
we really
sad
got
to
to
say
keep
bye
it
to them
moving.
soon.
Like, I'm just sorry. I don't want to be annoying, but
No, we're all good.
I have somewhere
up
to be
next,
for all the people out there. So,
I do not know who this next team is. We're going to skip them for now.
Okay.
Orange Odyssey. I think this is another team that can be towards the bottom. The only thing is their solo queue ranks are relatively high. They are the 13th seed coming in, although I don't
Cool.
know many of their
they also
players
have
here.
Way at the Tempest. We're going to put them in win a match.
Okay, fair enough. United Swag Factory, aka USF. This is University of South Florida, unaffiliated. This is a team that I think is on par with the GVUs, the
Yep.
OCs of the world. They've got Dragoon on their team. I think we should put them very, very close to that tier in the day 3 tier.
Yep.
As you mentioned, Dragoon, Jonathan's, Cannon Bob, our favorite.
Cannon Bob,
um,
OQ's not ready for him.
and then Humphreys and Nick.
Cool.
So
Yeah, I'm
couple
with you
other
for sure,
teams.
100%. They have a great match to start the tournament against Dorado.
Oh man, Dorado is gonna be that's gonna be a good one to start.
Yep.
That's the fact that that's a round 1 is pretty exciting. Wang's what is their name? Wang's Goblins this time is another team. It's basically the same roster as before. Boil the Oil, Rapid, Debonair, Deathwalker, and who is their support?
ZKG, I believe, is playing support for them.
Okay, I was gonna say his name is Washed Boomer in the OQ IGN. So maybe not too inaccurate there. Think this is day 4 team? I think so.
I think so. I think they're in the same tier of like the Dorados, the Dozers. I don't even remember what this fucking team is.
That's the
Kobuko's-
dog. That's the Dawg Fans with Barrack and Nightstar.
I'm moving this team down. Okay. Yeah, I think they're in the same like mid day 4 potential tier with like the guys kind of to their left and right. A little bit worse than maybe some of the CLO teams, but not significantly.
Okay.
They've been playing together
we've
for a
got-
long time.
We've got Wardens up next. This is the Dante's team that has been like shattered and torn apart in a million different pieces and now has 5 new players on it. Actually, a lot of the Nigel's Last Tiles players on this roster. They got Quest Hodgson, Evan Lai, Insanes, Realms, Elias, and Sora are all on this team. It's kind of like a massive 9 to 10 man roster that might be swapping in and out as the tournament goes on. They're not going to be bad.
Grapes, I think this team is very like high tier day 3 hard stuck.
This is basically Nigel's like plus Dante's.
It's
is what we have to
it's
think about
Nigel's
this
plus
team.
Dante's and Quest Hodgson, but I'm hoping Quest isn't playing. He has listed himself in his own sheet as the starting AD carry though, so we'll see. Yeah, I think this is just good players. They're solid tier 3 players. I think they'll win some games. But I don't think they necessarily punch up into like these guys above them.
They'll be getting a lot of stream time here, Hawk. Who are they playing first round?
Oh god, what are they called? Fucking hell,
The
Wardens.
Wardens. They're the 16th seed, so they should be playing like the 49th
They are playing the
team.
agency,
Okay.
which we have in the
Looking-
bottom tier. So hopefully they pick up that first win.
So we got 3 more teams, and then we got to try to count out the rest of the unnamed ones afterwards. Weber State is the next one up. This is a team with Jex, U13, Goku, and then Sendy, as well as Gloomgrove in their bottom lane. Just lost 2-1 to Weber State, which we talked about and broke that game down on Semi-Pro POV.
Lost 2-1 to UCI, not to themselves. Maybe to themselves, depending on how
Sorry.
you feel.
UCI. It's been a long episode.
This team has a fantastic mid jungle. U13 and Goku were phenomenal. I actually thought they outperformed Rose Thorn and Zhao Danny. Biggest issue for me, Grapes, their bottom lane is a huge liability. And Jex is mostly just a tank player. So, I mean, I think at the end of the day, they're going with a lot of these other mid-tier CEAL teams.
Yep, I would put them probably above both Grandview and OC because CEAL Hub has that, and they've had better wins overall. But yeah, right in that tier, as we've got two more teams that we know the names of. Zero Animosity is next up, and this is another team that I think we can kind of put a little bit closer to the bottom. They are 34th seed. I think they take a game
I think they're in
because
win a match.
of that. They have Z-Score, who's a player that's been in some OQs, as well as RetroZing. And then the last one here, sorry, that's the Z team. I went backwards there.
Yeah.
I was going to look up the name for the Snowman team if you had anything else to say about these guys.
I don't really got to work with RetroZing in the Combine. I actually think RetroZing is quite good. Very excited to see them play in this larger OQ. Hoping their team's able to pick up a match. All right, Grapes, are you able to figure out quickly who these 5 teams are?
Yeah, so this is the weird one here. The Snowman is YBN1, which has Lunacia, NXI, Triple, Meech, and Claritz. So one of Nightmare's team players also got another team here. Meech will be playing with some of his friends, a lot of OQ and NACL veterans, although none of them, other than Meech, really have reached that like top tier. I say this team is in like the finals weekend or the day 4 area.
Oh, Grapes, I was going to say, I hate to say it, I think this team is a contender. They have Meech and Claritz, one of the best bottom lanes in this tournament for sure.
Interesting. I just don't know how strong their top side is going to be. I think it's probably a similar story to that other roster that we were talking about, like the Duckie Getters. I think they're probably in a similar tier as them.
I would agree, but I think their bottom lane is what elevates them above everybody else in that tier. And I hate to say it too, because I'm kind of rooting against this team. Shout out Meech, love you. But yeah, I there's some ops on this team to be honest, but I think they are going to be I think they're a huge threat to be real. I'm fine to put them in final weekend if that's where you think they are, but I think they're pretty high up in this tier.
Do you think they're better than Red Note?
Unless Red Note has those like big step ups, absolutely. Like,
okay, well,
dude,
let's put them at the bottom of contenders then.
Yeah,
that's gonna
like
be the
I mean,
last
if
one
we're
to
thinking
round us
like
out.
both of these teams are one player teams, Meech and Yusin, like even then, like I know we think Yusin's the GOAT, but that's Meech right there.
No, you're right. The rest of the team definitely better. There's a couple of other rosters on this that we did not talk about. The ones that I think we're gonna have to focus on the most is Friendly Fellas. This is the team with a lot of weird and interesting members across the amateur space. Moose Hater, Wiggly / Griffin coming back, Dunn, the Victor streamer, Wixie, and Tyson, who was on Nigel's for a split. Another team that I think is in that like day 4 range.
I also think this team higher of you. Wixie, Moose Hater, and Wiggly, 3 players that have performed very highly in NACL at some point in their careers. I know Wiggly's been out of the game for a long time, but I think they get final weekend tier, no?
I just don't know about Dunn specifically. He's played on I think he was on Large for a little bit before Scoon took over. He's mostly been a streamer so far. We have not seen Moose Hater play competitive in a couple of years either. I think Wixie is good, but maybe bottom of final weekend. I think I would put like a team like Slated Six. Maybe you're right. Maybe they're in the final weekend tier. Maybe they're right below Duckie Getters.
Oh, I was just gonna put them at the bottom.
Putting them at the bottom is fine. Putting them at the bottom is fine fine with me as well.
But I just think like if Moose Hater, Wixie, and Wiggly play like 80% of their strength, like this team will be pretty good.
Yeah, I would agree. Who's their first round matchup?
That's a good question. Friendly Fellas are playing against Akuma,
right?
also in this tier.
So I remember I brought it up because I remember that it was a good first round matchup for those guys. We also have the Mahir Saware team.
Should we just put everybody else down here and call it a day?
I just don't know who that like alien logo is. If we did know, I would tell you guys. Other than that, we're missing that team. We're missing the PP team, and then we're missing L0 Legends, who...
PP team, we'll just put them there, I guess. It's fine. I'm assuming all the other teams are kind of like whatever, right?
And if you're mad that your team's not mentioned, put your goddamn logo in the spreadsheet when you fill it out next time. That's what I will say.
Yeah.
As a long episode of Salty Runback. I know very much over.
Sorry, I really
this was
like
fun.
I need to leave right now. So we're gonna speed through this outro. Thank you everyone for watching this tier list. This is an hour and 40 minutes, 64 teams on a tier list. Grapes, final thoughts, takeaways as we look at kind of the whole thing right here in front of us.
Just watch the OQs. We're going to be streaming here on Salty Runback as well as Hawk on twitch.tv/NACL, as well as being restreamed on the YouTube channel. So many games will be covered. There'll be multiple tweets out, which is where you can watch all the games. So make sure you tune in, and we'll be right back here next week.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll be right back here. Make sure you join our Discord. Follow us on all of our channels at Salty Runback NA. Check out our Patreon where you can get the latest episode of Shooting the Salt as well as Semi-Pro POV. Follow myself at Hawkcast, Grapes at Speedy Grapes. And yeah, if you are mad you're not here, take what we said with a grain of salt. I've been Hawk. That's been Grapes. Have a great rest of your night.